Ladies and gentlemen, Penn State football has a secret weapon that could potentially win them the college football national championship this season. Alright guys, so this year Penn State has got out to a very impressive 5-0 start, and they are currently ranked number 6 in the college football AP poll. And honestly, they have been dominating all their competition this year, as they are currently 5-0 against the spread this season and have scored 30 points in all 5 of their games. However, what makes this team so good and their secret weapon this year is their defense. Penn State's defense is loaded from top to bottom, and they have arguably the best defense in the Big Ten and arguably the best defense in college football this season. I mean, take a look at this graphic. They are currently ranked number 1 in the entire nation in college football this year in total defense. And the stats just stand for themselves. So let's break down the Penn State Nittany Lions defense and why I think that they are the secret weapon to this team making the college football playoff for the first time in their program's history. So this all actually began in 2021 when Penn State would hire former Miami head coach Manny Diaz to be their defensive coordinator. And at the time, many people doubted Manny, and many thought that this was a bad hire, as they thought that he could not perform at Penn State. However, I'm pretty sure he has proven all the doubters wrong. In 2022, Penn State had one of the best defenses in college football, led by Manny Diaz, as he absolutely revitalized this defense. As this 2022 Penn State Nittany Lions defense would finish top 10 in many of the major categories, such as total defense, total passing yards allowed, and total points scored. However, this year their defense might even be better, and they could potentially have the best defense in college football. It all began in the offseason, as Penn State continued to build upon this loaded defense and continued to add more and more depth. And we finally saw them take the field in week number 1 against the West Virginia Mountaineers. And in this game, the Penn State Nittany Lions would defeat West Virginia 38-15, and the defense looked absolutely amazing. In this game, Penn State's defense would hold West Virginia to only 15 points on the night, and they would only have 162 passing yards with one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. In this game, we finally saw what Penn State's front 7 could do, as they would have 3 sacks and 6 tackles for loss in this game. However, this was just the start of Penn State's defensive dominance, as in week number 2, the Penn State Nittany Lions would face off against the Delaware Blue Hens, and they would absolutely destroy them in a 63-7 score, and Penn State's defense looked crazy. They held Delaware's quarterback to only 56 passing yards, and they also scored a touchdown in this game, as one of Penn State's linebackers, Dominic DeLuca, would have a pick 6. And again in this game, Penn State's front 7 looked amazing, as they had 4 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. However, we must remember that they can only get to the quarterback due to how good Penn State's secondary is, completely shutting down their wide receivers. And then in college football week number 3, Penn State finally got on the map and finally got the recognition they deserved, as they took on the Illinois Fighting Illini. And in this game, the offense would kind of struggle with Drew Allar at quarterback, as this was his very first road start as a college football starter. However, the defense picked up for the slack. In this game, Penn State would end up winning 30-13, and this was all due to the defense's performance, as they would cause Illinois' offense to have 5 turnovers, and Penn State would get 4 interceptions in this game. They caused Luke Altmaier to throw 4 interceptions in this game, and they held Illinois' rushing attack to only 78 yards on the ground. And the secondary looked absolutely amazing in this game. However, the front 7 looked arguably better, as again they would have 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss in this game against Illinois. And in week number 4, Penn State took on the Iowa Hawkeyes, and this was a huge game, and their defense really cemented themselves as the best in college football in week number 4. Honestly, never seen a defensive performance this dominant, as Penn State completely shut down the Iowa Hawkeyes, as they allowed their quarterback to only throw for 59 yards and held Iowa to under 100 yards in this game, as Iowa only gained 76 yards in the entire game. 76 yards. Iowa only had 76 yards in this game, as Penn State's defense completely dominated. And Penn State's defense shut them out in this game, as they would end up winning 31-0. Penn State's defense was flying all over the field, and their front 7 looked amazing, as they had over 15 quarterback pressures, 3 sacks, and 7 tackles for loss. Go along with this, Penn State forced 5 fumbles, and they recovered 4 of them in this game, as Penn State's defense looked absolutely dominant and finally cemented themselves as one of the top defenses in college football and the best defense in the Big Ten. And then Penn State's defense really solidified themselves in college football week number 5, as they took on the Northwestern Wildcats. They would win this game 41-13, and it was all due to their defense. This game, Penn State's front 7 was really the difference makers, as they were flying all over the field. They had over 20 quarterback pressures, 20, with 7 sacks and 12 tackles for loss, and they also held Northwestern's rushing attack to only 45 yards on the ground. And this was one of the most dominant front sevens I've ever seen in college football, as they were at the quarterback the entire game. Penn State's front seven looked absolutely amazing in this game as they were flying. They looked like one of the fastest front sevens I've ever seen, and their edges are absolutely amazing as they were at the quarterback the entire game against Northwestern and completely destroyed them. And this would lead to Penn State picking up a huge 41-13 victory over Northwestern, and this is honestly Penn State's secret weapon this season. Penn State is the top defense in the nation right now, and if they want to potentially make the college football playoff for the first time in their program's history, it's going to all come from how that defense plays, as their defense could potentially win them the national championship this year.